So Matt Schlapp and I just celebrated, sorry, Andrew, our 24th wedding anniversary on July 13th. We have 5 daughters. We actually have a wedding next month, August 15th, and then...
We're not getting married.
No, our daughter is. And then a second daughter just got engaged. So that's kind of... And we pretty much told them that if they ever become crazy leftists, they'll be cut out of the will. Like, it's done. So that's the goal here.
Well, after they get done with lawfare, there'll be nothing in the will, so it'd probably be okay.
That is true. That is true. But
I've separated the Slapps here.
You did.
On their wedding anniversary.
What is that? We can't even hold hands or anything. This is bad. So it's really wonderful to be with Andrew and obviously with my sweet husband, Matt. And they ask us, well, what is CPAC? You know, it's funny because you all, like, obviously this is for some of you. How many have heard about CPAC in the past in this group here? So, which is fantastic, great number. But it really, I want to really, Matt, just start with you first because you had this vision of really helping take this internationally. Why? No vision?
It's not accurate.
Okay.
I'd love to tell you that I had this all plotted out on a napkin. I knew exactly what I was going to do, and we were going to take over this country and take over that country. But Andrew knows the real story, which was I was walking with my mother, who's great. I'm sorry she's not here with us today, but she is still here with us, if you know what I mean. And I'm walking down the hall of CPAC, and this Japanese guy comes up to me and goes, hey, through his interpreter, I've started the Japanese Conservative Union, and we're going to have CPAC. And I was like, what the hell are you talking about? In Japan? And they had kind of launched on this whole thing. And I was like, I guess this could go overseas. And then shortly thereafter, Andrew came to see us and said, we want to do CPAC in Australia. So really, the fact is that you had people in countries, and by the way, I talked about doing this with Nigel Farage 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. You know, we were sitting in a bar saying, we got to take CPAC everywhere.
You were sitting in a bar with Nigel, really?
I can't believe it either.
Okay.
He might have been smoking, but it's unknown. But and we talked about the fact like this, we've got to fight back against the globalists by going global. And Andrew and I had a similar conversation. So why the hell did you say we should go do this in Australia?
I recall going to the US to talk to your former CEO, Dan Schneider, and then later to your board of 24 board members, my God. And I remember thinking, I'm here pitching the first CPAC, and then at the end of it, after I've done my little dog and pony show, trying to impress everyone, you go, oh no, we're already doing one in Japan. I thought, oh my God, so it's already happening. The reason I did it, I wanted to do it, to me was proven by, I thought you had a brand that was global, and we had nothing in Australia where the Conservatives gathered together across all the broad spectrum, a celebration of what we believe in. And I wanted to recreate what you guys had done for the last 50 years in the US. I wanted an agenda-setting organisation that wasn't beholden to politicians, that was independent and was values-focused, principled-focused. And I think we've achieved that. You've gone to many CPACs down under in Australia, and we're not quite at the US level yet. But my goal is to beat you on per population. So
it's pretty good, and I'd say that the Mercy worked for President Trump.
He was the best boss ever, the best. I'm serious. The problem with President Trump sometimes is I would be in the Oval Office with him, and then he would literally, something would come up, and then he'd ask me a question, and then he'd do the lip thing, and then he'd go, "What does your husband think?" And I was literally like, "Sir, why don't you just call Matt Schlapp and ask him?" And that was usually the case in a lot of these conversations.
As much as we put Trump on a stage, CPAC stage, like 50 days after J6, which I think, looking back, was courageous to do and helped bring him back, which was good for our country, I think good for the world. But we're not really aligned, thank you.
Well, and the other thing is that we were the only conservative group that stuck by Donald Trump after J6. That was one of the things. All the other conservative groups really went in a different direction, didn't arm's distance. And when Matt invited Donald Trump to come back that year, the president really, he was down. It was a hard time. It was a really hard time.
He'd been canceled.
And your board members basically said, you need to disinvite
I almost
the
lost my
president.
job.
Right.
I almost had to call Andrew and have him come back and talk to the board again.
And you're like, I'm not disinviting the president of the United States.
I don't know how you disinvite someone who you've invited. I just don't even know how to even think about that. I remember thinking about that. I was like, what if they forced me to uninvite Donald Trump? And I was like, would I send him an email or would I call him? Or what do you do? Do you send him a FedEx? And then I was like, I don't think it's possible. And I would try to pretend like how the conversation would go. And they all went very badly in my mind. So anyway, it was the right thing to stick by him. My point is, though, it's really not about a politician, not one, even when they're amazing. It's not about a party. Look at what you're dealing with in your country. Many of you might still be Tories, were Tories, or I guess they call themselves conservatives. I don't think they deserve the name of conservative personally. Things change, and we're not aligned to any particular person. It's about the issues. Really, I think for Mercy, for Andrew, for myself, separate countries, obviously, and the other partners we have in the other countries, all we want to do is for the politicians to do the right thing and what they said they would do. If they lose in trying to do the right thing, I think we're okay with that. The problem is it's almost always the opposite, right?
Yeah, absolutely, Matt. And the experience in Australia over the last 7 years has been, they're a little bit scared of CPAC. What's it about? Is it like a Donald Trump?
Is that why when I go talk to some of these guys, they take a step back when I say who I am? They're like, okay.
No, that's other
Like
reasons.
a political virus I might give them or something.
No, I'm not going to comment on that. But if you stick by the values, the good politicians, the good representatives, they'll gravitate towards. And what's happened in Australia is we're now gone from, oh, should we speak at CPAC, to I need to speak at CPAC.
That's right.
I need that platform. I need to demonstrate to the base that I am a conservative and I believe in the values of conservatism. And I think that's taken a long time, and it's going to take time here in the UK. Culturally, Australia is more similar to the UK than we are to the US. So I perceive here it'll take some time, but at some point in the future, if Reform and the Conservatives and whatever other parties are around, they're still battling and competing, I envisage that they will all come and speak here. And that's what's happening in Australia now. The leaders...
The one thing Andrew's not being honest about is you might be culturally similar to the Aussies, but it's very hard to survive their version of the Winston Churchill dinner. Happy hour starts at 2:30 in the afternoon, and by the time the dinner gets going, the auction, I think people are bidding and they don't really know what they're doing. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, the secret to a great auction is early drinks. There's no doubt about that.
And I think one of the reasons why their CPAC is so much fun, because your people really do have a great spirit, but they're really pretty depressed when you get to the political part of it, because they haven't had a great leader in a long time.
No, they haven't. And this is why it's so exciting this year, and this is why I believe we are on a path back to a conservative government, is that we have three parties tangling with each other, conservative parties, jockeying for position, but when the push comes to shove, they will form a coalition government and take out Albanese in the Labor government. And it's exciting. And the thing is that those three leaders, for the first time ever, are CPAC endorsed. Like, we believe in all three of them. So whoever forms the government, whoever forms the prime ministership, we believe we've got three jockeys on three horses.
If you actually get a conservative prime minister, Mercy and I want to come celebrate with you, because that would be an amazing achievement that CPAC will have had a lot to do with.
Yeah, it would be amazing, and we would love you and everyone in this room to come celebrate with us, because we've got to celebrate our wins, right? There's not too many of them around.
Let me tell you where the wins really are, Mercy. I'm going to ask you a question.
I thought I was moderating, but apparently someone took...
No, but you're more of an expert. They call him chairman here, by the way. Okay. But the, Mercy.
Yes.
South and Central America, all around the USA, we're having huge victories in the Spanish-speaking world.
Well, this is very personal to me. My father turned 91 this year, and he's 91. And, he grew up in Cuba, was very successful, self-made man. And when Fidel Castro came into power in the late 1959 revolution, they came in and took his business. They literally asked for the key and said, hand it over, and assigned him to a role. And my father was like, I'm not going to do this. What's going on here? And so he decides to join a counter-revolutionary group to take down the Castro regime. And basically, there was a mole in the group, and they got thrown into jail, and half of his group was executed. He heard the shots of these men being executed by these horrific military officials, these terrorists. And my father tells the story that every time they would, he would hear the shots in the jungle, they would blindfold the men, they would tie them up. The last words they would say was, "Viva Cristo Rey," "Viva Christ the King," and how brave these men were in their fight for freedom. So I grew up listening to these stories of my parents and their fleeing the communist country. We ended up in America, and for my father, as he always says, he goes, I'm not Cuban American, I'm American, and I love this country for the opportunities and the freedoms that we have here. But he also taught me, as a little girl, our democracy is fragile. Our freedoms are fragile. We can lose them very quickly. And we have an obligation as the people, Matt, you talked about the issues, but it's really about the people that we do this work at CPAC. It is about every day Matt and I get up, we pray, we have our cup of coffee, and we say, how can we make sure that we protect freedoms in our country? And now with, I believe, what God has brought to our hearts to take this freedom movement across the globe, and it really has been under God's sovereignty, under his reign, that we have been able to go to over 12 countries and have had massive successes in places like Argentina, in places like Hungary, in places like Poland, in America. And it's why we're going to fight till the end. It's going to be our tireless effort.
But all throughout Central and South America, too, we're seeing all these victories.
Yes, and I would say, we've brought, one of the things we've been able to do at CPAC is no one knew who Javier Milei was. No one knew.
Javier Milei, and I was like, they're like, he could be the next president of Argentina. I looked at him and said, no way.
And then he came out with a chainsaw at CPAC that he handed over to Elon Musk, and Matt and I were in the backstage going, what the heck has just happened at CPAC?
I was in the front. I was in
There
the front.
you were.
I was in the front
Right.
row when that happened.
Yeah.
With one of my donors, and we looked at each other and go, "What world are we in?"
Exactly.
Where the president of Argentina, brings his chainsaw out.
Right.
That he smuggled in.
Well, it was in Maryland. So CPAC in D.C. is actually in Maryland, and Maryland does not believe that a gun should ever be in anyone's possession at any time. And this is something you'll just have to give Americans credit for, which is we understand how important that is, because what did they do in Iran? They always take away the guns first. What did they do in Cuba?
Yeah.
They always take away the guns first, because then you can't fight back against the authoritarians. So in the chainsaw, which was a working chainsaw and pretty big, they had to take out the whatever it was that
motor.
Made it work. I don't know if it was a spark plug or whatever the thing was. They had to, the authorities showed up to make sure they made it so it wouldn't work. And so this chainsaw's out there, and all I kept thinking of the chainsaw was like, I'd really like to have one of these too. And so Elon Musk was hanging around the back, and he came out, and I was like, you're a pretty rich guy. And he was like, yes. I was like, you can buy anything you want. And he was like, I can. I was like, well, then, so why don't you give CPAC the chainsaw? Because you can probably get any chainsaw you want. And he was like, no way. I was like, well, what is the richest man in the world going to do with a chainsaw? He's like, it's going on my desk.
Yeah, it was in his desk.
Now, I have heard, I know this is being live streamed, so this is dangerous, but I've heard that chainsaw might still be at the White House.
Ooh, okay.
So one of the things I have to do, because I'm considered an insider, is to figure out a way to get that chainsaw. So I'm working.
You need that chainsaw. And you know what we've got to do with
and then we're going to auction it off in CPAC Australia.
That's right.
No, look, but I do think, it's like the Malay phenomenon that's had such an impact in Latin America. We did CPAC Paraguay, we've done CPAC Mexico. We really piss off the socialists and the communists. And let me tell you, I get great pleasure out of doing that. But why? But why? Because we know that communism doesn't work. We know that communism tears you down. They want to take over your family. They want to take over your nation. They think they're the solution. They want to replace the government with God and family. And so we have to fight against that. And I think that's what you're seeing in Central and South America. We're looking to do an event in the Western Hemisphere as well. And, you know, for us, it's not just events. I mean, our goal is to really combine these fractured coalitions to win. So, Matt, I do want to go to you because CPAC Poland was one of those elections where, to this day, the president of Poland came to you and said, I would not have won if it wasn't for CPAC.
Well, I might tone that down just a little bit. I give him the credit, right? Because it was amazingly courageous for anybody in this time. Look, you can get assassinated very easily these days, as you've just seen in your country with this wonderful, brave woman who lost her life for the cause. We've seen it in our country with Charlie's murder and with the assassination attempt on Steve Scalise, who's one of our leaders in Congress, with a couple of assassination attempts against Donald Trump. And, you know, I don't really talk about it, but for all of those who are in the fight, the threats are very real and they're very regular, and these people are evil, hateful, violent, and we should take their threats seriously because they mean it. But I get these, I was telling Andrew, I get these crazy calls all the time. Oh, you should have a CPAC on Saturn, on Mars. I mean, it's just everywhere. It's like you should have a CPAC here or there.
Well, Elon Musk should definitely fund that one.
Yeah, for sure. So you have all these ideas, and then someone said you should have a CPAC in Poland. And I was like, wait, and I'm always like dollars and cents guy. I'm like, well, you got to figure out how to pay for it. How are we going to pay for it if we go all the way to Poland? And I'm talking to some Polish friends in America, and we're going through this whole thing. And none of it made any sense. And I know Michael was here from Poland. I don't think he's here today. But I was like, you know, what we do with a lot of this is we pray about it and try to use my wits. I think that's a great word, wits, by the way. And we said, what the hell? We're going to do it. We're just going to do CPAC Poland. And the Polish people who were advising me said, really? You're just going to do it like that? You're just going to do it? I was like, yeah, we're just going to do it. And I was like, when would we do it? And they'd be like, oh, it's going to be like 5 days before the election. And I was like, is the candidate up or down? Oh, he's down. I was like, is he down a lot? Yeah. And I was like, why is he down? And they said, well, he's an outsider. He's not really tied to anything. He doesn't really have a party. You know, they're saying that he's morally not fit for office. And they said all these things. I was like, he sounds awesome. He's not tied to any of the power. He doesn't have to do anyone's bidding. They're saying he's a terrible person, which probably means he's a really great person. And that means they're also scared of him. Sounds like our kind of guy. So we jumped right in, and then it turns out that we were very aligned with the Trump administration. They sent Kristi Noem over there, and we had CPAC in what I would say was kind of MAGA version of CPAC of Poland, and I do believe we made a massive difference in the race. And okay, so here's what happens. Then you have the one victory in Poland, and it's amazing how then other people start to say, well, wait a minute. We're in this neighborhood. Maybe we can be a little bolder about standing up against net zero or transing our kids, or you name the issue. They start to stand up and say, yeah, we can do this. And then I realize it's like the American Revolution, sorry, it's the wrong analogy in the wrong country, but let me just keep going. Don't hate me. But it was about, by the way, you guys declared your independence from your king too, right? He's there, he's wonderful, but he doesn't run your government anymore. So like everyone kind of got to the same conclusion eventually. And the point was this, it was about 8% of the people in America that said, I'm willing to take my treasure, my sacred honor, my fortune, put it on the line for freedom, for independence. And that's an amazing thing. And by the way, that is still true today. If you look at every great movement, it is a slender minority. Sometimes the bad guys have a slender minority, right, and they were able to take over. So maybe groups like CPAC and efforts like this that are grassroots focused, some of you are rich, some of you aren't rich, some of you are powerful, some of you are less powerful, some of you are young, some of you are old. We all come at the station we are in life. What if we banded together and said that we're going to stand for some just common sense things? Like when we flip the switch, we want the lights to come on. If we want to have a political opinion, we can express it without going to jail, right? What if we stood for these principles, and what if they became dominant again?
Andrew, what's your biggest threat? What do you think is the biggest threat right now?
In Australia?
In Australia, I would say in the globe.
Look, I think there's a playbook, there's a leftist playbook that's been rolled out similarly across particularly the Anglosphere. I think Trump has taken a lot of measures to deal with that in the US, but we're still struggling in most of the other countries, in the UK and in Australia and New Zealand, and from what I see in Canada as well. So I think where CPAC can help is propagate kind of a fightback playbook, and I think we see some of that. Like in Australia, we've seen what's happened with reform here, the frustration with the Conservatives here has led to reform, and we've seen a similar thing now follow in Australia, and it's not so much that we've copied it. What it's done to the population, the Conservatives in Australia, is actually you can go down an alternative path. You can express your frustration by taking your support elsewhere, and then that puts pressure on the Conservatives here, puts pressure on the Conservative parties in the US. So what's the greatest threat? It's the playbook. The solution to me lies in learning from the fightbacks that are successful in the other CPAC countries and taking that back and applying it as best you can in your own country.
Give the audience, you've been to so many of these CPACs across the globe. What is that common thread, and how would you explain CPAC USA, which is like the motherhood, the mothership, I would say, of CPACs right now?
Look, to me, CPAC is... the way I looked at it when I first wanted to do a CPAC was that the American Constitution, to me, is something, it's a very special document. We don't have anything like that in Australia. And CPAC, upon its start with Reagan and its first CPAC and forever after there, has basically been, to me, a kind of a touchstone into an organisation that wants to protect that Constitution. And I want a bit of that in Australia, and I think the whole Western world would benefit from a bit of that. And I'm not talking about the politics of the day that go ebbs and flows in the US. I'm talking about that founding document. To me, that says a lot about all the principles that I think we all share. So that was my motivation to get involved in CPAC. If I may, Mercy, because I know time's almost up, I just want to say to everyone here that CPAC, the organisation, though, isn't the panacea. It's not the solution. The solution is with the people in the room. That's right. It's the people in the room. If you subscribe to what Liz is trying to do, what we're trying to do, then next year, bring your friends, bring your children, right? Build this up into a movement. Make this kind of a party political agnostic organisation, but it's a movement of people that share the values, and bring people along, because, I'm in, now for the rest of my life. And it's because of what you guys have done. It's what Reagan did 50 years ago. And I'm hoping in 10 years' time I can celebrate something special here in London, man.
You know what they say, Andrew, all the time? When they shame me online or our organization, they say, Reagan would be so angry with what you're doing for this reason or that reason. And it stings. Because if I think of the founders of my country, if I think of Ronald Reagan, you think of Margaret Thatcher, Winston Churchill. By the way, I think these people, my religion tells me these people are alive. And I always wonder, what would they think? They're right here, right now. Would they be, you make a decision in the modern context. Is it right? Is it wrong? It's our duty to honor these great people and to continue to make the right decisions. And I do think that I feel a very special kinship to all of you because I'm American. And my forefathers, by and large, came from these islands. And I feel a kinship to the people of Australia because we're all a part of this thing. The English-speaking world has been so belittled and maligned that we're yesterday. I think we should be tomorrow and today and be proud of who we are. And our three countries should work very closely together to make that happen.
And we have to preserve our history, preserve our culture, teach our children, teach our grandchildren. It goes beyond even us. And so to be part of this incredible journey, I think has been such one of the greatest honors of my life, to do this alongside my husband and be able to bring our children along in this process, because we have to be in this battle. It's a bigger battle than all of us, and it is a battle against evil, and it's something that we have to be committed to do from the moment we're young, and even in our younger years, into we're older, because the fight doesn't end. We have to continue in this fight, but it's really, Andrew's become a dear friend of ours. We have so many of our friends, international friends. And I do encourage you, we do have our CPAC USA, that's next April, believe 14th through the
7th through the 14th.
No.
14th through 17th?
17th.
Okay.
And when you think
one of
about
those dates?
It is like, you know how there's like the United Nations? This is like the conservative United Nations. This is like everyone coming together from, it used to be really purely American, to like across the globe. I don't know how many engagements and marriages have come out of CPAC. So if you're single, I would highly encourage you to go.
It's better than online dating. It's because it's in person.
It is in person. And it is truly like you get out of there and you're just inspired. And I know what's going to happen here. I already know it. We have planted the seed here at CPAC Great Britain. This is going to get bigger and bigger and bigger every year.
Let me just take a point of privilege here. Mercy brought up our anniversary. We met working in the Bush White House. I was in the political department. She was in the media department. The media people hate the political people because the political people are always getting the media people bad press. But we overcame that. I will say this, when you do this, at least in the American context, we say this ain't beanbag. It's not easy. It's not easy on families. It's not easy on spouses. They really come after you hard. And the thing is, we really don't do that. I don't like the people that I fight against politically, but I have to say I really let go of hate. I don't want anything to happen to them in their personal lives. I'm not trying to destroy their ability to make a living. They want to destroy you. They want to destroy us. Now, that shouldn't make us overreact, but I do want to say, when Mercy said to Andrew, asked Andrew, what's the best thing about CPAC? It is the people. We said last night when we did not stay out with the party group last night. We went home because we were so dang tired. But the first thing Mercy said to me is, we have met the most amazing people. That's what it's all about. That's why we do this. We're building a community that we believe in borders, but in a sense, the community's borderless. And we're going to help each other. And they might have all the money. They might get all the headlines. They might get all the big jobs. It might look like the battle's over. But together, working together in all these important countries, we're going to beat them. We're going to win. And you're going to do it, and we're going to do it.
Andrew, last word.
I know you're right, Matt. I just want to encourage everyone here to, you probably just met the Schlapps for the first time, but I've known them for a long time. They have been put through the ringer. I haven't seen a couple having to beat off the attacks and whatnot. I would encourage you right now to thank them for the work that they're doing and encourage them to come back next year to CPAC London.
Thank you.